One of the questions that we got asked regularly is what to stock a person's tank with. Just to put a caveat on this conversation, this is purely our views. What we've experienced is there are a multitude of benefits of mixing both fish from the rock-dwelling category, such as mbuna, with the open water type fish, such as peacocks and haps. Now, I think there's a natural precedent for these fish living in the same area and overlapping equal areas. You know, you spend a bit of time in Lake Malawi, dive below the water surface, and I tell you what, you will see both peacocks and mbuna all inhabiting the same area. It just happens. That's the reality of it. You know, there is only so much space. One of the pushbacks against this is I assume that there will be a level of aggression between the two types of species of fish, and they can't cohabit. It's again only our opinion. This is an example of a tank that we've set up for a customer. We've got a lovely collection of peacocks in there, and the other collection of fish that we have is both mbuna, so rock-dwelling fish from Lake Malawi, as well as Tanganyikan tropheus fish. And I really don't see, as long as you're keeping the water quality good, any issue with having these fish overlapping. Now, one of the biggest issues is that fish that have a similar body type or have a similar feeding methodology, they will be conspecifically aggressive with each other. They will resource guard and they will defend their territory. So when you keep only, say, peacocks, you can only have so many males in a tank. And this is just the reality of it. You know, there is an X amount of fish that will work in a tank. And with mbuna, you can only have a specific collection of fish that will be able to exist within a tank of any size. But when you overlap these two, you're able to have both that same amount of mbuna, and you will have a similar amount of peacocks that can both live with each other, that will not see each other as conspecifically aggressive. I guess the main pushback is that you can't keep fish together because of their different feeding types, and I think this is quite flawed. I think if you look at the amount of protein that tropheus take up in their diet every day, the crustacean invertebrates that they're eating out of the algae is massive. So if we look at a way to feed your fish, one example, and the way we succeed with it, is we feed lots of seaweed, lots of nori. You can then feed your massive amounts of protein that you require for your peacocks and your haps to have the best coloration, but their digestive tract is having that pushed through rather than sitting in their gut. And a lot of meals, a lot of fish meal makes up most fish food, and I think it's the level of processed food. So when it comes to mixing mbuna, so rock-dwelling fish, and peacocks, I think there's no problem. I believe every single tank we've ever set up has a collection of both mbuna and alonakara and haps. It just works really well. It's natural. They kind of overlap with each other. They don't take up as competitive space with each other as perhaps if you only had a mbuna tank, you'd only be able to have so much. I mean, if every one of our tanks, we've used this approach with our breeding tanks. I don't run any single species tanks to breed. We've always got a species of mbuna and a species of peacock, perhaps, and perhaps or an ultralampologus or a rock-dwelling cave spawning from Tanganyika. I think having the overlap of species together is a good thing. I think it breeds comfortability for the fish, certainly, and it just makes sense in terms of the space. You're able to have a higher amount of fish in a tank because they're not as conspecifically aggressive with each other, and therefore you have a tank that the territoriality or aggression is spread over a larger colony of fish. So kind of if you can hide away in a crowd, you can escape, as well as your tank looks better. As long as you're feeding a good quality of food and something like nori, I mean, go out and buy yourself a packet of nori from your local supermarket, soak it in water and feed your fish. That's how we feed our fish every morning. And the proof of the pudding is in eating. Healthy tanks with vibrant colored fish. Creating natural looking aquariums that are easy to maintain.